There isn't. We're on live. Hello, Kay. How are you?
I'm doing well, Kara. How are you doing today?
I am doing wonderful. I'm so excited to have some time with you. Today, I have the privilege to spend time with Kay, who has, gosh, you have an extensive background in nursing experience. You're also an educator and an influencer in nursing. And I've just been amazed at how you support internationally educated nurses. And on top of it, you're like this great mom and just somebody I love spending time with. And I always learn something from you. So thank you for the time today. And Kate, we were chatting and talking about just this dynamic healthcare landscape and how we integrate internationally educated nurses into the clinical environment is so essential in the collaboration and that exchange of expertise as nurses are coming over. And kind of central to this integration is that relationship between the nurses and their preceptors, which really holds this promise of fostering professional growth and enhancing patient care and bridging diverse healthcare approaches, which is really exciting. And as we kind of navigate through this process, it really becomes imperative for internationally educated nurses to engage in that relationship with their preceptor and, leveraging it as this golden opportunity to learn and adapt and excel once they come over. And so I always hear these questions like, how can these nurses maximize the value derived from their the interactions with their preceptors, and how can they really transform that mentorship into knowledge, skill acquisition, culture exchange? So there's just like so much to that whole preceptor relationship. And so Kay, I am sure everybody is as excited as I am to get some time with you. So can't wait to just hear some of your advice.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's very important to understand both sides, and I'm very grateful for the experience that I have gone for the past 17 years transitioning. I think that's one of the hardest part a person will have to go through is transitioning to their new roles. May it be a nurse, may it be a manager, a director, or any part of it. It's just getting transition. The word transition is sometimes very stressful in somebody's life. Moving is the number one. Moving is the number one the most stressful event in somebody's life. And an international nurse coming to a new place with new culture, new society, new everything is just probably one of the most, brain wrecking, event in their life. And having the support there by the employer, and as well as the guidance that the nurses will get, creates the success in both sides, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's great. So what are some of the recommendations you give to internationally educated nurses, or really we should say healthcare professionals, because there's others that are coming over here that go through the same preceptorship? So what are some of your recommendations?
My recommendation is, as a person who has gone through orientation next, every 3 months technically, or transfer, is number one rule: do what the Romans do in Rome. Technically, it's not hard to be respectful of the new environment that you're walking in. Just respect, that is their house. You're one of their guests that's going to be eventually part of their family eventually, right? So do what the Romans do in Rome is the number one rule of a person coming into a new place. You don't come in there and tell them how to do things. That will create a block already in your relationship. So when you are starting to a new place, I would recommend definitely to be observant first, see how the rooms do it in Rome, right? And it does not mean that you're going to follow every single thing that they're doing, even if it's wrong. You know, up to them. They have been there for many years, and you want to start off with by respecting their practice, their home, and who they are. I know a lot of people have come from different parts of the world and will have experience. And when you come into the new place, telling them how, this is how we do it in Middle East, this is how we do it in UK, this is how we do it in Australia, it's not going to help the relationship. Okay, but it's nice to have those experiences on your end so you can compare the different practice and craft your own best practice on your own. For me, when I start, every time I start in a new place, I look at how people do it differently, and I just observe it. And mind you, there's only one procedure, but people will do it 100 different ways, and it's okay. Okay, and it's totally okay. Some people have their own routine. It comes also with personality. That this is how they were. This is how they were raised up. That it's actually very tight process. But some people like millennials like me and probably you guys coming to the United States, probably there's 5 steps. Can I do it in 3 steps too? That it's gonna create the same outcome. Millennials are triggered to be creative, as far as compared before our baby boomers. This is the rule, you gotta have to follow it. There's no other rule. That's how I was raised to in the Philippines. This is the rule, this is the only way to do it, and you're gonna have to follow it, and it's totally fine. But now there's a different generation coming in. I think it's most really important there. It's respecting each other's practice, as long as it's in the safe practice. But first, observe first, okay?
So I definitely hear like this observing, everybody brings in their own experiences to a location, but being really open to some of the policy and procedures may be different, and just being really open to learning.
Correct. Also, one thing that I want to emphasize is there is importance of knowing what really the policy and procedure of your facility. Okay, sometimes the orientation goes like this. You're going to be sitting down, observe, you're going to be sitting down and in front of the computer going through the entire policy and procedure of the new place. And then when you get to the actual, you see things done differently. And so those happens. It's also possible that you're given a preceptor on day one, a different preceptor on the second day, a different preceptor on the third day, and a fourth day, and they all do different things.
So what do you do in that? Because I do hear that, Kay. What do you do when you have a couple different preceptors that maybe do things a little bit differently?
So I just observe at first. I don't tell them that wasn't the one written in the policy and procedure. So you don't do that. You don't tell them what they're doing wrong. Of course, unless it's detrimental, putting patients' life to risk or putting your license to risk. Okay. So if you see a practice that's still within the policy and procedure, is just tweaked on that will make their life easier, that's fine. I want you to absorb those information. The second nurse, if they show you different things that is still within the policy and procedure of the hospital, absorb it. Okay. The third nurse doing different things and outside the policy and procedure. Now I want you to use your critical thinking as a professional healthcare provider to see if you want to absorb that or not. So most likely you should not, right? You should not follow that. But it's not your responsibility as a new orientee to tell that they're doing wrong. Okay. It's not your responsibility to fix these people. There is a management who takes care of that. But for you, your focus should be absorbing the correct way that is within the policy and procedure of the facility. So gather all those different practice, and I want you to give yourself time to process it and see which one do I want to adapt to. Because every single day you will learn different things, and every single day you should be crafting your own delivery care, crafting for the best delivery care that you can do. Okay, so that is totally fine. If you see problem that's really putting your license or your patients to risk, then do what the policy and procedures say. Go to your manager, raise it up, and majority of the managers are very supportive of the new nurses, and you can also say anonymously reporting, right? And you don't want to be the person who will be like creating so much wave when you get there to a new place. You're gonna be in trouble. You're gonna give yourself so much issue. But majority of the Filipinos are peacemakers, peace lovers. So we try to be diplomatic in many ways.
Which is great. So it sounds like, so I'm hearing you say observe, really take in, learn the policies and procedures, know that there may be a little bit different ways of doing things, and they might see that with different preceptors, and then also asking questions, right? On if something isn't clear.
Got it. Yes, important to ask questions. Number one rule for nurses, you never assume, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's not only for nurses, any person in the healthcare delivery system, you should never assume. That's why we're always taught to verify, read back. Those are the things that we teach our nursing students, because it's important to not assume, because assuming will get everything in trouble, get everyone in trouble.
Yeah.
So one thing to do there is to identify who you can trust. And it's not easy, but at least identify who you think is the person that is approachable. And it's not hard to identify those people. Um, I've and that's the important part of being in those preceptorship with different preceptors, because you will learn and feel who are those people who can be easily asked and will not judge you. And those are very important to identify. After identifying that person, whom you think that you're comfortable expressing, your questions,
Yeah.
I want you to write down, every time you go into a preceptorship, write down notes. And then at the end of the shift or at the end of the discussion, feel free to ask them, because these people are very willing to teach you. There's a lot of them really, very helpful there out of their kindness. And I want to emphasize this important part here. A lot of these preceptors are not paid extra to teach you. A lot of them
Mm,
are doing this out of their kindness. And you have to appreciate what they're doing for you. And in return, they will appreciate you if they see that you are proactive in your learning.
yeah.
Um, it give them a sense of fulfillment and creates a very good atmosphere and culture within the workplace. Take down notes, and then ask them at the end, because you don't want to be going every single hour asking somebody, somebody's asking question
Yeah.
either. If you
Sure.
want, you can just write down all your questions. Um, and I'll be honest with you, no manager expects a new nurse to absorb 100% of what's being taught, right? So our brain cannot really, record or memorize
Yeah.
everything that's been told and said to you. So majority of the time you'll retain about 30, 40, 50% of what's being taught to you on that day. But if you write down notes, it can add to that a retention of about 70, 80% that you'll be retaining from that preceptorship.
That's great. I appreciate that. And I love the, like, ask questions as you go along, but also keep writing down all the different questions, because there's a lot, right? And to be able to go ahead and go back and ask those questions, almost like a debrief at the end of, what I learned. These are the questions that I still
Yeah.
have. This is what I want some more education in or looking forward to. That's great. Anything else?
I want to add there, the cultural, the Filipinos or any international nurse who would come into a new country, there's this cultural impact that will hinder us or put us into challenge of learning. And one important aspect there is, a lot of us in our culture is we don't ask. So
Yeah.
because asking somebody in authority is like we find it in our culture like disrespectful. It's like, don't ask. But actually in reality now is, you should ask. If you have questions, always ask. And asking is not being disrespectful. Okay. Probably in where we came from, it might be, but here in the United States, accept this fact that asking in the United States is not disrespectful at all. Okay.
Mhm.
And asking is not questioning their integrity. Asking is not questioning the preceptor's knowledge. You have to be clear and concise with that you're asking for clarification. Okay. So you don't want to be feeling like, why is this new nurse keep asking me, like she doesn't trust me or she doesn't believe me.
Mhm.
You just have to make sure that that you are clear that, hey, I have a question. I know you mentioned this to me earlier, but I just want to clarify if this is for this or this is for that.
Yeah.
Those are the most important thing. And feel free to ask questions again. If you don't understand, because sometimes language barrier comes in,
Mhm.
You can just say, excuse me, can you repeat that? You know,
Yeah.
it's very important to say that if you don't understand, ask that. You know, I know it's very hard to hear different accent. When I went to Boston,
Oh
that was
gosh.
that wasn't the accent that my ears was used to.
Yeah.
Primarily, I took IELTS. IELTS is British accent, and I passed it. Well, I took my TOEFL as well, which is the English testing of English, right? I passed it too. But when I compared TOEFL and IELTS, those are two different accents.
Yeah.
And then I landed in New York. It's like a salad bowl of accents. We have Nigerian,
Right.
Jamaican, Dominican,
Yes.
Russian. My ears were bleeding.
Yeah.
And it's very important when you land in this kind of places where there is just so much accent. It's very important to ask and clarify. Very, very important. I said when I went to Boston, even though I've been working in the United States more than 2 years already, that was really a challenge for me to understand what they're saying. They have strong Bostonian accent, you know. This is what they say.
Yeah.
Did you park your car? Like what? So it's like, oh, this is the cold card. This is the plastic card. This is the cash card. I'm like, you say that?
Now we're making fun of
So
those from Boston, huh?
I'm from Boston. They know that. But
Yeah.
I was always going to say, excuse me, can you say that again? Okay.
Yeah.
So now, if you feel like you're in that situation, I want you to encourage yourself to be proactive in learning those accents. Go to the TV, go to Netflix, go to YouTube, and then start watching those videos with those accents.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have even thought of that. So that was great. So, Kay, I really hear like observe, know that the policies and procedures are most likely going to be a little bit different from whatever their experience is. So bring in the experience, but also learn, ask questions, write things down, and ask clarifying questions. It's okay to ask clarifying questions. In fact, I would say it's powerful and necessary to ask questions to clarify as they're learning, and that relationship with their preceptor. I mean, that's somebody they're going to really get to know and be able to share things and openly ask questions and ask clarification and being able to go back and asking additional questions. It's just such a great relationship for the nurses as they come in.
Okay, absolutely. It's not easy at the beginning, but hey, the more that you know that you practice it, the
Yeah.
more that you are going to be fine, and the more you help yourself actually is gonna determine the success of your stay in that
Right.
facility.
Right. That's awesome. Well, Kay, I certainly appreciate you being on today and sharing your wisdom and little nuggets as you go along. So thank you again for spending time with us today.
All right, thank you so much to Karen. I hope everybody gets a chance to you know explore what I have said and we discussed, and good luck. And it never, you know, when you go past through that, you're just gonna keep on growing.
That's right. That's right. It's like a fun thing, right? Like
Yeah,
embrace it, take it all on, learn as much as you
yeah,
can. Very cool. Good advice. All right.
yeah.
Thank you, Kay.
All right, bye everyone.